Welcome to the Health Revolution. There are many wonderful health practitioners out there, but then there are always those few greats, and we're very privileged tonight to have one of the real greats in health on with us tonight. His work is both profound and prolific. He's written a number of incredible books, including Winning the War on Cancer, Transdermal Magnesium, Survival Medicine, and a number of specific ones on iodine and sodium bicarbonate, and most recently on medical marijuana. And he's also written ones on light, heat, and love and sex medicine. And he's had a profound effect on my view of health, and I'm sure he's going to have the same effect on you. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Mark Sircus. Are you there, Mark?
Okay. I'm here. I'm talking from Brazil, the northeast coast of Brazil.
You're a very, very lucky man. So
I've been down here 22 years. Originally, I'm from New York.
And
New York.
What took you to Brazil?
A prayer, literally a prayer 22 years ago. I prayed for a new life, and I got the answer in about 5 hours. And it was the interior highlands of Brazil. And that's where I'm building a sanctuary, which is after 9 years almost finished.
Wow, must be quite a place. So,
oh yeah.
I'd like to ask you to start with what you feel are the key fundamentals of health, the things that really all of us need to be paying attention to in this modern world.
Wow, that's a big question.
Yes.
Fundamentals, for me, well, personally for me, the most fundamental thing that's been keeping me animated and alive in life is my heart. Having an open heart, being vulnerable with people, with situations, allowing myself to feel all my feelings, to cry in public or wherever without shame. Not have that feeling I need to hide anything has given me the key to, well, to an open heart. And that's the source of my power and my passion and my inspiration. Though I learned the hard way that even though I've written about that, I have a book called Heart Health about that. The book, Marriage of the Souls, my recent book on sex and love medicine, all touch on these very intimate areas of life that really are based on the heart. Heartful sexuality. It's when we miss out on a part of our heart, we miss out on part of ourselves. And unfortunately, the first world, or the world in general, modern civilization, does not support vulnerability. People think it's a weakness when it's really a strength. Beside that, breathing. We're going to talk about some bad oxygen tonight and cancer. Breathing. My wife's a yoga teacher since she's 15 years old. And I'll show you, everybody. Here's something. This is the first time on video here. This is called Breath Slim. Originally, it's from Russia and was called the Froblob breathing device. And it's very simple. It costs $50. You breathe deeply in your abdomen and you blow bubbles. And what it does, it puts the brakes on your breathing. slows your breathing down. It's like buying this thing is like buying a yoga teacher from or a guru from the Himalayas and have him move into your living room, because it'll train you to breathe more correctly. And that's very important. Eventually our bad breathing habits catch up on us. Of course, eating, confession of a mad physician, I ate whatever I wanted in as much quantity as I wanted until I was 60 years old. And now I'm paying the price and having to change everything. I literally got away with murder on my own body, abusing it with food, or too much food, or too much sugar. So, of course, diet, love relationships, very important. And today, practicing medicine on oneself is a basic thing. They don't teach us in school how to take care of ourselves. They don't teach it in high school. They don't teach it in college. They don't even teach it to doctors. They don't teach doctors how to take care of themselves. So we need to learn that and practice that, especially if we're parents. Have to take care of our kids. It's a very toxic world and getting more toxic. Fukushima has not been a joke, and neither has anything else that modern man has been doing, especially for the last 100 years. I would say those are the basics, covering quite a bit of territory. I'm sure we can go into detail in many different areas, but and another big thing for me in my life and in my work is communication. I define in my book, or the work called The Marriage of the Souls, I define love as listening and love as communication. And with that,
unfortunately, we appear to have lost you, Mark, at the moment. So we're going to re-establish the line in a minute, and hopefully we will be speaking with him again soon. The first time I came across Mark was when I was researching magnesium, and suddenly the whole world of magnesium changed, and I understood that it perhaps is the most important mineral of the lot, and without it we're going to suffer big time, as most people in the world are. The default situation for us humans is we should be healthy. That's normal. We are self-repairing mechanisms, and if for some reason we are not able to self-repair, frankly, either we've been toxically damaged or we've got a nutrient deficiency. And when I first realized the importance of magnesium and the role of nutrient deficiency and to some degree detoxification, I realized that Mark had come out with this book, Transdermal Magnesium, where he explains that the best way to get magnesium into your body is not to take it internally, which if you take too much, actually it gives you diarrhea. So rubbing it on the skin is absolutely ideal, because there really is virtually no such thing as too much. It's a bit like swimming in the sea. You get a lot of magnesium that way. And the reason that people used to go and take the waters at Baden-Baden or wherever was to get the magnesium. And he'll also be speaking to us in a moment about sodium bicarbonate, another wonderfully inexpensive and naturally occurring substance which can be used along with magnesium chloride in the bath. And I think Mark's going to talk at some length about the incredible benefits. I just heard of somebody just actually this morning who'd had a relaxing magnesium bath, and essentially it was so relaxing they just had to go to sleep for 3 hours. And people having sleep problems can be fantastically helped with magnesium baths. The thing is to take the right amount and not take it necessarily in the morning. Possibly before bed would be a much more suitable time. One of the other interesting books that Mark has written is about iodine, which is incredibly topical at the moment because of the Fukushima disaster going on. It's one of the remedies available. I don't know whether you know, but about 3 weeks after the Fukushima accident occurred, the French Nuclear Authority announced that it was no longer safe to eat green leafy vegetables. That was just within 3 weeks, and of course the contamination has been continuing ever since. It may have something to do with the disappearing insects this year. You've probably noticed on your windscreen those insects just aren't there. And however, for your own personal safety, ingestion of iodine as a counter-radioactive measure is very, very important, particularly to use one of the higher quality iodines. Some of the other interesting subjects that have come to my attention before we get Mark back are some of the new techniques in anti-aging and also in the regrowth of limbs. Next week, we hope to be speaking to an expert on these two subjects. We're going to be talking, for instance, about the people who've cut off fingers and been able to regrow them. And we'll be explaining exactly what they did and how it happened so quickly, and how the people coming back from Afghanistan can and are already benefiting from the ability to regrow tissue. One of the other very exciting responses that we've had have been to the sulfur program with Patrick McGeehan, and although we've had some problems trying to have enough of it in stock, new supplies are coming hopefully this week, and the Ancient Purity website, the new one that we've been waiting for some months, is supposed to go online tomorrow. So that will have not all, but a number of the items that we've been discussing and haven't yet had available. Mark has written some remarkable books on basically survival medicine, exactly what to do when events like Fukushima happen. I've been researching recently filters to filter out radiation, and we'll be doing a program very shortly on exactly what you can do to filter your water. I was listening to a lecture just yesterday where the chap was asked, well, will this not only filter out all the normal radioactive elements, but will it filter out the really dangerous one, which is which is plutonium? And he said, yes, it will. Now, if that's true, that's quite a significant breakthrough. And actually, breakthroughs are coming thick and fast in the health world, as I'm sure Mark will confirm when he finally gets back to us. We get a progress report from head office. Anything? Nothing.
Completely offline at the moment.
Goodness. Oh well, we shall have to continue despite that. The first time I used the transdermal magnesium was with immediate success. I didn't realize at the time, because I'd only been aware of taking magnesium as a tablet or a capsule, that using it through the skin was so immensely quick. I used to get muscle cramps, which occurred after the doctors had told me to eat less salt. And I found that on myself, rubbing magnesium into my calves, where the muscle cramping was happening, was almost instantaneous. And of course, as I think many of you will know, these muscle cramps are a warning of a muscle cramp in your heart muscle, which would be called a heart attack. And interestingly, some of the signs of a deficiency of magnesium are anxiety, panic attacks. I never used to think of myself as anxious until I suddenly realized one day that I actually was anxious. But again, since using magnesium, I find myself much, much calmer. And the other symptoms, of course, are things like hiccups, muscle cramps, twitches, spasms. Even menstrual cramps have one of their bases in a magnesium deficiency. It's worth bearing in mind that the bowels function with magnesium as well. So to get a good bowel movement, one needs magnesium. Magnesium is in every cell of the body. It's absolutely vital. And what Mark discovered was incredible. Really, he was the first person to bring to the world's attention the fact that it could be so easily assimilated through the skin, and you didn't necessarily have to go to a famous bath to experience it. You could experience it just by adding crystals of, for instance, magnesium chloride into your bath. And if you're interested in trying that, we're back online, I believe. Mark, are you back with us?
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties in Brazil.
Right, well, glad to have you back. I've just been filling in a little bit in the meantime, telling them a little bit about transdermal magnesium, and I was just in the middle of telling them about the wonders of a magnesium bath. Perhaps you might be able to enlighten us a bit about how much to use and whether it's worth mixing one with another type of magnesium. What's your favorite?
The ultimate magnesium bath is a magnesium bath with sodium bicarbonate. And then if you want to take that even one level higher, you add citric acid. And what you get is the citric acid turns the sodium bicarbonate into carbon dioxide microbubbles.
Right.
And science and medicine doesn't really like to pay too much attention, but bicarbonate and carbon dioxide are really the same thing. They're two different forms of the same thing. And in carbon dioxide, CO2 is O2, so there's oxygen in carbon dioxide, just like there's oxygen in water, H2O. So when you turn a weak acid like citric acid will break down the bicarbonate and transform it into carbon dioxide, and that goes into the cells through the skin even easier than bicarbonate. So bicarbonate is a very important medicine it's always been, but it's one of the best substances and of course the most inexpensive of all medicines. There's nothing cheaper than sodium bicarbonate baking soda. Out of all the medicines, it is one of the most useful because you can detoxify the body with it. You can clean the soil of uranium with it. You can protect the kidneys from uranium toxicity with it. You can treat aging with it because as we age, we become bicarbonate deficient. And as we become bicarbonate deficient, we become deficient actually in carbon dioxide, and then our oxygen levels go down. So sodium bicarbonate is a very important medicine because it turns into carbon. If you eat it, it turns into carbon dioxide in the stomach.
So most people are going to be surprised to hear that, aren't they?
Yeah. And why it works, it'll draw a reaction from hydrochloric acid, and hydrochloric acid and sodium bicarbonate, which turns into carbon dioxide gas, and that drives the bicarbonates into the bloodstream. And what happens when you have more carbon dioxide in the bloodstream, or bicarbonates, is the blood vessels dilate, and you get more blood and oxygen to the cells. This is why exercise is really healthy, because we create carbon dioxide when we exercise.
And would you say that just walking around, when I'm working, I tend to walk around all day long, really? Do you think that counts as exercise, or are you thinking of more harder exercise?
No, not quite.
Shame.
Well, in Portuguese I know how to say it. I deceived myself for years on a tennis court, taking half-hour tennis lessons and running for 10 minutes and taking a break, running for 10 minutes and taking a break. Even that did not do the trick for me.
All right. So how did you know it wasn't doing the trick for you?
Well, it's a story that's led to a crisis in this past year in my life. I would get out of breath quickly, It came 10 minutes, and I would start feeling pain from the loss of breath, and I would sit down. 14 months ago, that turned into a GERD attack, and I fell on the tennis court. And I've been fighting that ever since, up and down, round and round.
Goodness.
And well, I don't know if we should go into it too much, but it's really been a battle of my life, especially the last few weeks. I don't know if I look like I'm dying, but
No.
I've had some near-death experiences lately. And what the cavalry that's came to the rescue for me actually came last Friday. And after all my years of research, I'm finally closing my protocol. I finished my protocol. It's now ready. I'm going to be putting out a cancer compendium. It's called Surviving Cancer Compendium. It'll be about 2,000 pages in about 2-3 months. And what arrived at my door was an oxygen system. I don't know if you've heard of it in Europe. It's called oxygen multi-step therapy.
No.
Also, it's called EWAT, exercise with oxygen therapy.
Yeah.
But what I'm doing takes it to another level. And I'll be publishing a book in a few weeks about it called Anti-Inflammatory Oxygen Therapy. And it's very interesting medicine. It's really oxygen medicine, and I've now put it ahead of magnesium. And I'm the magnesium man. I put it number one in my protocol is oxygen. And if you get enough oxygen, you can just about heal anything and kill anything, meaning kill cancer, kill candida, funguses, bacteria, viruses. All these creatures don't live very well in high oxygen conditions, so oxygen is really a poison for them. So this equipment, this therapy, is you use an oxygen concentrator, and the way the therapy was used until now is you use an oxygen concentrator and you get on a bicycle and you wear a mask and you breathe through a little tube the air that comes out of the oxygen concentrator. And in 32 hours, it'll have an incredible magical effect. It will take, like put out the fire in the capillaries, the inflammation, and allow oxygen to get into the cells. It'll do a permanent kind of healing. What we have coming out, and we're launching on Friday as a group, is a new interesting idea that takes this into a fantastic place. Instead of breathing 10 liters of oxygen a minute from a concentrator, and that's an expensive one. You can buy 5 liter or 10 liter. It'll only work with 10 liter. Instead of breathing out of this, you connect the machine to a big reservoir. And for 2 hours, you pump the oxygen into a reservoir, like a tent. Then you get on the bicycle, and for 15 minutes you ride, breathing in all of the oxygen you can breathe. And the effect of that is beyond hyperbaric chambers. You'd have to go into a Navy chamber, hyperbaric chamber, with 4 atmospheres to get the kind of effect I'm talking about. It's like an avalanche of oxygen that's available in your own room, your own bedroom or office. All you need is a treadmill or a standing bicycle. And for 15 minutes a day, I'm doing it 3 times a day, you flood your body with oxygen. And this, if you're going to flood your body with anything, especially if you have cancer, you flood with oxygen. Why? Because cancer is, according to all the real science, their cells are using fermentation of metabolism. They're low oxygen organisms. However you define it, one way of defining it is low oxygen. So what happens when you you breathe like a dragon. You breathe oxygen into the tissues, into the cells. All the cells that are still, let's say, human and still working according to some semblance of organization, you'll be firing up their energy factories, the mitochondria, and they're going to burst into life, have more energy for healing and to resist whatever's going on, the oppression of the cancer cells and all the infectious process that comes with cancer. There's no way a body with full of cancer is clean of viruses, bacteria, and fungus. There's no way. And everything that doesn't belong, including the cancer cells that hate oxygen, so you're giving them, it's like the cyanide. Now there's other kinds of cyanide for cancer. But oxygen is the most basic, and it hits it like below the belt, where its life depends on. So you cut down the sugar way down, and you hit it with oxygen. I'm not saying, my religion in medicine is protocol. I don't look at anything in isolation. I'm just talking about oxygen. And yes, it's the number one in my protocol, but I would never apply it. You can't apply it safely unless you use the rest of the protocol, at least parts of it. One of the reasons it works is because you're exercising. And what's so good about the exercise? You create carbon dioxide, and that makes oxygen safe. It's like the yin-yang together. You can't give pure oxygen without carbon dioxide, unless you want to kill a patient. They don't sell oxygen cylinders with 100% oxygen. They always put in some carbon dioxide.
And would you like to expand on the protocol?
Okay, behind that, the number 2 item in my protocol is carbon dioxide, or sodium bicarbonate, potassium bicarbonate, calcium bicarbonate, and specifically magnesium bicarbonate. Magnesium bicarbonate is a very interesting substance. There was a veterinarian in Australia about 10 years ago discovered that his cattle were living 30 to 50% longer than everybody else's cattle. And it took them years, but they found out it was the water they were drinking. And the water they were drinking was very high in magnesium bicarbonate. There are different water companies in the world that sell water, bottled water, high in magnesium bicarbonate. There's one in the United States. I think there's 1 or 2 in Europe. Of course, it's expensive. And of course, it's very expensive to ship if you don't live near the source. The other option is a concentrate you can put into all of your water and make it into magnesium bicarbonate water. And so you're covering, the number 3 item in my protocol is all magnesium medicine. So I'm really starting to talk about number 3. 2 is really the bicarbonates, because you got to get control of the bicarbonate function of the body. And as people get older, they get deficient in bicarbonates. They become deficient in carbon dioxide. And they get deficient in oxygen. So it's a very important parameter and very good for practicing medicine on oneself. When you get the flu, in 1918, when millions were dying, there was a doctor that did testimony and was printed in 1926 by the Arm & Hammer's baking soda company. And there was a physician who was treating his patients with bicarbonate, and none of them died. None of them died. 3 is magnesium. My protocol, and what made me actually come on the playing board in medicine in the world sense, internationally, was my work with magnesium. I'm into flooding the body with magnesium through many means, through drinking it, through putting it on your skin and getting massages, which is like a treatment for Cleopatra, baths with it, nebulizing with it into the lungs, and drinking it in all one's water. It's like the oil in the car. It lubricates life. It lubricates the interaction between carbon dioxide and magnesium. Magnesium is there. Did I say that? No, I said it mediates between carbon dioxide and oxygen. When carbon dioxide or bicarbonate hits a plant with sunlight, the magnesium is sitting there at the head, in the middle of chlorophyll, making this miracle happen where we can take carbon dioxide and light and make oxygen and food, chemical energy. In the blood, magnesium is very important for oxygen transport and the red blood cells and their shape and insulin receptivity and on and on and on. So we're at number 3. Number 4 is iodine, which is very important today because of Fukushima. That's not the only reason it's important. Dr. David Brownstein, one of my favorite doctors in the world, he actually called me last night in answer to a prayer even. And he tested 5,000 of his patients in Detroit, just outside of Detroit. 95% were iodine deficient. When you're iodine deficient, your thyroid is a sitting duck for radioactive iodine. And Fukushima put out plenty of it in the first weeks of the disaster. We don't have any idea what it's putting out now in terms of iodine. But certainly there's been, and the 8-day half-life of the one of them is okay. So it goes away very quickly, but there's another form of iodine that has a half-life of like 1,000,000 years. So we don't want to be iodine deficient. We don't want our thyroids, when they're deficient, they crave for iodine, and it's like a spider web. Catch anything that comes by. Glutathione is very big in my protocol, using it through nebulization, through suppositories, through sublingual. Selenium, I'm one of the few, I don't know if anybody else has written a book. I'm the only doctor who's written a book about sodium bicarbonate, and I believe I'm the only, I never checked, but I don't think so, I'm the only doctor who's written a book about selenium. Selenium is a very interesting substance. First, you're supposed to be very scared of it. It's supposed to be very dangerous, and you're supposed to take very little of it. Meanwhile, people take lots of aspirin, and aspirin must be 10,000 times more dangerous and more toxic. In the United States alone, 20,000 people die of aspirin or different forms of aspirin a year. Only one person has died that I know of on the internet that you read about of selenium in the last 10 years. And he took a dose of 10,000 times of the wrong type of selenium. One death. With selenium, the science is very, very clear. 200 micrograms, which is 2 Brazil nuts a day, or 1 capsule a day, will reduce your chance of dying from cancer by 50%.
That's pretty 50%. Useful.
Imagine what you would do if you took 100 times that dose. Or more. Now, before I wrote the book, one of the things that motivated me to write the book is when I found out that there was a pharmaceutical company, making injectable selenium for the emergency room because it's such a great anti-inflammatory. There's a special selenium. It's really not on the market. Not as a commercial, what I call a commercial product, but you can get it. It's a liposomal selenium. It's selenium in, what's it called? Sesame seed oil. And there's some brilliant medical work that shows that when you mix a fat with something like selenium, it helps the selenium get exactly where it's needed. And I had a very interesting healing experience about 4 months ago. I was at my sanctuary. We're not open yet there. And I was on my honeymoon, actually, with my wife. We have 6 kids, and it was the first time we were away from the beginning of our relationship from our kids. And we were halfway through it, and my wife's best friend called, old best friend or something, with cancer. And the doctors wanted to take out her stomach and spleen and all her lymphatic tissue just to begin treatment. And so we invited her to barge in on a honeymoon, and I treated her. And I thought I knew I healed her in 4 days. And I gave her 20 milligrams of selenium. But I didn't think it was the selenium that was doing it. I didn't think selenium could do it in 4 days. What I thought it was, later in my protocol, there are 2 items in my protocol that are pretty unique. One, I'm the only doctor in the world to list the tears of the melting heart as a medicinal. Opening up the heart and letting the tears flow is really good medicine. And so is love and rescuing love and communication, resolving conflicts, using our sexuality. I did incredible deep work in that way with her, and I thought that's what did the trick in 4 days. But at the end, she messed that all up. And she still was doing fine. So I went back to looking at the protocol, and I'm looking more at selenium. So selenium is very interesting and very powerful to use. Medical marijuana for cancer or for anything, if you need a medicine, if you believe in medicine, if you believe in the world of medicine and doctors, this is the best medicine. It just is. It covers more ground than anything and does something that nothing else does. We have a cannabinoid system and receptors for cannabinoids. It's in medical marijuana. And today, I pretty much promote a CBD, which is one form of medical marijuana that doesn't get you high, that doesn't have THC, so it's legal.
Yes, indeed, and it's legal here in the UK.
Right.
And have you found in your experience that it's actually better than the THC illegal version, or they're roughly the same? Or?
Well, it's hard to make that comparison. I have right in front of me. This is one form, a salve of medical marijuana. It's fantastic for anything on the skin. Anything on the skin, any burn, cancer, anything. Fungus on the skin. There's another one I have right here. This is, this I just got in the mail. It's a tube, CBD. This one is 15.9% CBD. And you just you squirt it into your mouth. It's like a thick paste. I've been using that for about a week. I don't like it near as much as the dewdrops from the same company or one of the sister companies. It's a liquid that you just kind of drink and drop it in. Very, very nice. But it doesn't get you high. But if you're looking for a medical effect, I saw a video last night on TV, and it was featuring a little girl who was having 300 seizures a week. And they had tried everything to help this girl. And the last thing they tried was medical marijuana, and they used CBD. And after one application, she didn't have a seizure for days. And now she has 1 seizure a week.
And what do you think she needs to do to cut it down to 0?
Well, probably institute the rest of my protocol.
Right.
Oxygen probably would take her over the top. Because the seizures is a real breakdown and loss of oxygen. So flooding the body with oxygen gives it the energy it needs to heal, to take an organism up to the top. top level performance. So there's more to the protocol. The breathing, of course, that the breathing device I showed you, slowing down the breathing, brings also one into a anti-stress place, breathing slowly, closing one's eyes, and just going deep into oneself, into the rhythm of breathing. And when I started 2 years ago with this breathing device, I breathed, and still do, about 12 breaths a minute. Cancer patients tend to breathe faster and faster and faster, and very shallow in the chest. With the machine, I can breathe for 20 minutes at 2 breaths a minute or less.
And what was the name of the machine once more?
In the Western world, it's called the Breath Slim.
Right.
Breath Slim. It's breathslim.com. It's one of the best $50 you'll ever spend.
Yes, I read about the original Russian version, slowing down breathing, and the Heart Math group have got a little computer device to slow down your breathing and get your heart-brain coherence going, which is another wonderful technique. Have you tried that?
I haven't tried it, but the Heart Math Institute was built on top of the University of the Trees, where Christopher Hills had his community, and I was there before Heart Math, when it was still the University of the Trees. Uh-huh. So yeah, I know their work, and it's very interesting work.
I can hear your cat in the background.
Yeah.
And so tell us a few of the things you've seen the medical marijuana do. I mean, obviously we're all particularly interested in sort of heart and cancer because they're so prevalent in the world.
Well, marijuana, it's actually going to become a necessary substance, like bicarbonate. As the world gets more toxic and more stressful, and people's levels of stress are going up after 300 years of, being robbed by a central banking system that's, seeing its last days today, everybody's stress is going up. So marijuana, I mean, even smoking it, it's more than recreation. It helps de-stress. And stress is one of the biggest creators of disease. When we get stressed out, we don't breathe correctly, and we don't breathe correctly, we lose our oxygen. It's a mess. We become a mess.
And there's significantly less oxygen in the world than there was thousands of years ago because, it's not the carbon dioxide that's the problem, it's the cutting down of all those trees that's the problem, and the lack of oxygen in the world. The oxygen trapped in amber is something like 40-something% oxygen, and now we're getting 23% or something like that, I think.
And in cities, less.
Are they having some success in Brazil at stopping the logging and stopping the destruction?
Not that I've heard of. No. Not that I've heard of. The world is still racing to its own destruction.
Yes. I'm observing people waking up as you are, day by day, more and more. On the UK column, the organisation which this is transmitted through, they discovered the Bradbury pound, a situation where the British, just before the First World War, were virtually bankrupt, and rather than doing a deal with the bank and borrow more money, they decided essentially to print their own interest-free for a short period of time. And so a precedent is there in England for getting the whole economy back going again, instead of basing money on debt, basing it on value. And so more and more people are discovering, there is a history of being able to bail out an economy exactly when you need it. Like the Greenbacks and Jefferson in America.
I'm afraid we're not going to get off so easy this time.
No? Well, I think I'm more optimistic than you are on that particular issue.
Well, I believe in what you're saying, that's financial sanity. And when you practice it, things really work.
Yes.
When you practice this insanity of banking and, this whole, what England did, what the United States has done.
Well, it seems to me that most of the problems in the world are financial. Most people are unhappy, even marriages fall apart, often because of lack of money. And I think people are waking up to the fact that the money system at the present is a fiction, and that what's the one thing that's really going to motivate people? Being actually a lot richer in all the senses, but the financial richness really does empower people. And I think if people woke up just to the realization that we're being enslaved and taxed beyond reason, and it could be so much better, it would be easy. The whole world on one day perhaps could change currency, so the governments wouldn't work anymore. They can't play.
Well, one of the things I missed in the protocol, another very important thing, is far infrared.
Yes.
And I have these things called a biomat. Instead of a far infrared sauna, it's a far infrared mattress, and you sleep on it or use it during the day. And the reason I just thought about it is one of the reasons I said that we're not going to have it so easy this time is we're also going to face at the same time as the financial collapse of this old system, we're also facing the next ice age. And if you don't want to quite believe in that yet, there's nobody who can deny we're going through violent climate change. But in terms of global temperatures, and one of the things that's driving the craziness is the sun now is at a 200-year minimum and still going south. It's in a very low level of activity. The last time this happened, we had a little ice age, like 300 years ago. And everything froze. Europe was a real difficult place in those days. And now, right now, as we're speaking, and this past 2 years, and coming into the last year, and coming into the last 6 months, and coming into this month, we are seeing a real intensification of volcanic activity. Volcanoes are exploding every day almost. In Indonesia, just in the news today, they just increased the alert status of 19 of their volcanoes, after one just blew up the other day and killed like 18 people. And things have been exploding. The point about that is that's putting up a lot of material up into the atmosphere that's going to block the sunlight. And so we have a diminishing sun and increasing volcanic activity. And that adds up to global cooling. And global cooling, we can see it's happening in the United States right now. They're getting slammed. Not easy to run a modern country and civilization when snowstorm after snowstorm keeps hitting. And this is just the beginning. Imagine in 5 years from now. So the reason I called my first compendium Survival Medicine is that health and survival and happiness are really all together. As things get more difficult, it's the people who have the most information and are using their resources in the sharpest possible way. It's the people who are prepared are going to do okay. And the people who are not preparing, whether it be through health practices, financial practices, life decisions, it's a tough world and getting tougher. We just finishing the easiest century, even though we've had big wars. And this last 30, 40 years, if you stay away from the really nasty parts, Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan and on and on and on, we've had it very easy. And I think those days are over. And if they're not over, they're ending. It depends who you are. If you're in Argentina today, you're pulling your hair out.
The GM foods have completely overtaken Argentina, haven't they? That was the sort of the first experiments were done there. And so are people now getting ill? You're seeing the effects of GM big time in Brazil, perhaps?
it's hard to differentiate. It's hard to pull one thing out and say, one of the things that got me into this whole line of work in medicine was writing about mercury and mercury toxicity. I mean, I've written 50 essays on Fukushima, but still in the world, mercury is a bigger threat. Dentists putting mercury fillings in the mouth, they still put tons of it in the mouth. It's like toxic waste dump in the mouth, inches from the
criminal insanity. And here in England, if a dentist is to say that they believe that mercury is dangerous in the mouth, they can lose their license, get struck off, even though they were taught it at school.
Yeah, and they still inject babies with mercury. Babies. In Brazil, and they used to do it in the United States. They stopped. It was 1999, they decided to take the mercury out of the vaccines in the United States. It took them a few years, and in 2004, they put it back in the flu vaccine, and they recommended that children at age 6 months old do take this vaccine every day, every year for the rest of their lives. Mercury shot after mercury shot.
It's frightening and psychopathic, quite frankly.
Psychopathic.
So for the people who have had vaccines themselves, or children who've had vaccines, what are your top detox methods specifically for mercury and the other things they may have come in contact with?
Well, I do use natural chelators like spirulina and chlorella, and I use a formula that mixes chlorella and cilantro, Chinese parsley, developed by a friend of mine in Russia, Dr. George Giorgio.
Here in England, it's coriander.
Coriander. And but detoxing mercury is it's one of the things in my protocol that everybody also should get into is clay. Eating clay, starting one's day off in the morning with a glass of clay water. Why do I say that? Well, one, in terms of mercury or radiation contamination, as you might eat it, day by day, clay is something very, very, very pure. And so it's like a magnet for anything that's impure. So when you're eating clay, it not only cleans your digestive system, but it pulls everything through. It pulls poisons to it. And if you flood the body with oxygen, with my number one machine to pump in the oxygen, the special effect of that extra oxygen going to the cells is immediate detoxification of the cell. The cell will dump what it's been holding on to, because it has the energy to do that. And you fire up the mitochondria. So there's many things. The selenium is very important for mercury because selenium has the most molecular affinity for mercury. So it combines with mercury very strongly, and then it's easier to get out of the body if you have a lot of selenium.
So just to make clear on selenium, you were saying that the normal dose would be considered 200 micrograms, but you were giving 20 milligrams, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how long do you think you could give 20 milligrams for safely? Or would you just want to use it for short term for a few days?
I would say save if you really need it. If you really need it, meaning having late stage cancer, I would say 3 months.
Right. That's very, very interesting.
The developer, now I did 20 milligrams. The developer, he said, well, somewhere between 20 and 50. Iodine's a good example. And it's a good point. In my type of medicine, which is called natural allopathic, I call it allopathic because everything I have in my protocol is based on science. It's Western science, comes out of universities and clinics, and hospitals. So it's scientific, but I have kept to the end with a rule to, well, it's the oath of doctors, to do no harm, to choose nothing in my protocol that can hurt people. Each item can only help. Yes, you can drown in a bucket of water. Anything can kill you. Anything can be a poison, even water. So you do anything wrong. But the key point so it's natural allopathic. But the key is the opposite of Western medicine, which uses poisons at low dosages. They live by a philosophy which is 400 years old. The dose makes the poison. So they don't want to kill you right away, even though people are ODing and dying of pharmaceuticals every day. In the United States, 107,000 die of their properly prescribed medicine every year. So who knows how many in England and how many around the rest of the world. So they give you little because they try not to kill so many people. But even giving low dosages, they kill lots of people. But in my protocol, we're using safe things that I don't consider poisons. I don't consider vitamin C a poison, or water, or selenium, or magnesium, or oxygen. They're not poisons. But the trick is you have to take enough to get the pharmacological effect. There's a sweet spot with oxygen. If you hit it, it's going to do something to the capillaries and detoxify the cells and light a fire inside of them. If you give enough carbon dioxide, you'll get more oxygen delivered to the cells. Magnesium. Now, I've seen miracles happen with very little magnesium, but if you really need it, you need to almost drown yourself in it. If you're fighting cancer and your life is on the line, there's no messing around. You have to really apply these different medicinals in high dosages.
And could I ask a question specifically on the liver? How do you feel that you should clean the gallbladder and the liver? What do you feel the best way?
You're asking the wrong doctor. That's not my specialty. The people next door to my sanctuary, they do that. It's more natural. I'm not that much of a naturopath, but when I do set up my sanctuary clinic, we'll have a detox center where we give enemas, but natural enemas, not even coffee. I have a woman, she's like an African leader of a tribe type of woman who was a midwife in where I had my sanctuary in the interior. And she's been doing this work for years, intestinal cleaning. And the people next door to me, they use ayahuasca, which is in my protocol. You ever heard of ayahuasca?
Yes.
Yeah, I have it 300 meters from my sanctuary, is a temple for drinking ayahuasca. It grows all over the place. The guy I bought my land from planted it everywhere, and he makes it. So that's, it's a very good substance to facilitate deeper change, inner change, confronting oneself and things like that. But it's also detoxifying. And these same people have different protocols for liver flushes and liver detoxes, but that's not been mine. I should do one myself. I'm a very bad patient.
Yes, that sounds like me, actually. I was listening to Nicholas Gonzalez talk about the coffee enemas, and really I was looking for something that wasn't an enema, really. I heard Andreas Moritz's type of liver flush, but then he died, and I always get slightly put off by the ones that die and wonder, well, how right were they?
Yeah, that's why I have to keep living.
Yeah, that would be useful. I would advise it. It's a good habit, living. So,
yeah.
Is there anything else particularly that you would like to point out as to, possibly vitamins and minerals? Do you supplement much in that line, and what other than the magnesium and so on?
Well, in the minerals, we have the bicarbonate, have the magnesium, have the iodine, and the selenium as the basic four that I pump in high levels. In terms of general nutrition, I use superfoods. My mentor in life, Christopher Hills, he was the one who brought spirulina to the world about 35 years ago. I don't use pure spirulina anymore. I use formulas. I use spirulina and chlorella, mix things together, and it's a lot better tasting formula. But these type of superfoods, eating very, very low on the food chain, which what spirulina plankton is, algae is, it has everything that you need in life. All the vitamins, minerals, cell salts, the trace elements, the amino acids.
Do you think is there enough zinc and chromium in there?
Depends on you. If you're needing those two substances specifically, then no. Then you need to find something to supplement with that. If for some reason you have a chromium deficiency and diabetic, then you have to. That's where your local doctor comes in, or your practitioner, fine-tuning the diagnosis. But what I've created is a general protocol. It's, I think, 19 levels deep now, and it's kind of like a turnkey system, like McDonald's. It's meant to be, and this compendium, it's meant to be able to, anybody who can read and wants to take care of themselves, I'm putting it out as a package. Okay, you get the package, you get the solution, you can apply it at home, you can go out and buy the things, everything is legal. The information technology is there to guide one to how to use these things, how to combine these things without me. Meaning I'm here in Brazil, and I can't attend. I'm going to open my sanctuary, but I'm a very private person. I'm a teacher and a writer. I'm not so much clinician anymore. I'm kind of retired, and so my whole motive has been to try to give people the tools that they need, that they can take and learn, because it's very easy. And like learning to ride a bicycle, well, easier than learning to ride a bicycle. It's just, you got to do each thing. And as you do each and apply each part of the protocol, you learn about it. And like riding a bicycle, once you learn, it's simple. It's simple.
I was asked to ask you about a kidney patient as to whether using too much bicarbonate could be harmful to the kidneys.
Well, sure. Taking too much of anything. Bicarbonate is a very sensitive item because it's very powerful. You have to use it exactly right. And exactly, if you have a cancer, for instance, or it's a little more difficult if you have a kidney situation. Sodium bicarbonate is one of the best medicines for the kidneys. It'll help the kidneys revive themselves, detoxify themselves, but you have to not overdo it. In cancer, it's a little easier. We know that you want to get you navigate your dosage with pH strips, and you take your urinary pH every morning, and you're looking for 8.0. To bring your pH of your urine up to 8. That's a very nice formula for cancer patients. You don't want to take it 8.5, you don't want 7, you want 8. But if you have kidney problems, then you have to really be sensitive to how much it actually feels right. Because anything you do wrong in the protocol, it's not going to make you feel good. So you follow your feelings, and what makes you feel better, you keep pounding on. And what's not so good, you either diminish and cut the dosage, or you stop.
And roughly speaking, what would be the dosages that we'd be looking at there, for those who can't afford to buy your book?
Oh, safe. I'd say between urinary 7 and 7.5. And doing that for like 10 days and then cutting back. If you don't get any kind of pain in the kidneys, you don't feel any negative consequence, then it's totally safe. Because people are bicarbonate deficient. And we're not meant to be bicarbonate deficient. So if you take something safe that your body needs, it's really hard to hurt.
So could you could you explain? You've mentioned taking baths in bicarbonate, and how about drinking bicarbonate? And how much bicarbonate to how much water, and when?
Well, it's not good. It gets a little complicated because it depends on the patient. Anybody who is into taking bicarbonate orally should also get into thinking about hydrochloric acid, HCl tablets, which is one of the basic medicines for GERD, for stomach, for acid upset. One of the answers is acid. Why? Because acid reflux is mostly created by deficiency of acid. When your stomach isn't acidic enough, doesn't get down to 2.0, very acidic, then the food doesn't digest so quickly, and it sits there in the stomach, and that's what people feel when it comes up, especially at night. So when you start eating hydrochloric acid, and then eat. With the sodium bicarbonate, you don't want to use it when you're eating. So you take it first thing in the morning, half hour before lunch, half hour before meals at night, and maybe before bed. The maximum dose for a cancer patient for a full-grown man is right on the Arm & Hammer's box, and it's 7.5 teaspoons a day for a full-grown man. That's maximum dosage of sodium bicarbonate. For a baby, for a young kid or a young child, you're looking at 1/7. You have to bring it down by weight.
Yes.
You could still use it in very young children.
And it seems important with bicarb to make sure that it's 100% pure and not mixed with aluminium products, as I understand it.
Well, there's really not much of a problem with that, even though it was, rumors. There's a product came out, sodium bicarbonate, without aluminum. It was kind of a sales gimmick. Main sodium bicarbonate manufacturers, they don't put it. It's it's baking powder that has the aluminum, not the baking soda.
Right. That's a good distinction.
So the regular stuff you buy in the supermarket is just fine. It's just fine.
Oh, good. And what sort of ratios, if one's going to have a bath in magnesium chloride and sodium bicarbonate and so on, what ratios should people be thinking about?
In the bath?
Yes.
If people go to my site, Dr. Sircus, that's Sircus, SIRCUS.com, one of the last essays I published was on carbon dioxide bath bombs. And that's where you add, you can make it yourself, you can buy these bath bombs, you can buy it very expensive from Japan, but it's adding citric acid to the sodium bicarbonate in the bath, and that turns it, remember I said, to the carbon dioxide. Taking, and this is very strong medicine, carbon dioxide it helps heal wounds, just like oxygen. I had a patient write me once who put 5 pounds of sodium bicarbonate in their bath. And they said it was coming out of them for 2 weeks. I recommend starting with maybe 2 cups sodium bicarbonate, and depending on the situation, you can go to 1 pound, to 1 kilo. Magnesium, you can use just as much. and then throwing in, for every pound, for every kilo of sodium bicarbonate, I would put a half a kilo in of citric acid. And then you have high technology medical baths. That's sure, it's going to feel good. Yes, it's anti-aging and relaxing. You're going to sleep better and detoxifying. But it's really, it's medicine. It's like emergency room medicine. It's what you want to do if you have cancer. If you have a heart attack and you're not being, the ambulance isn't anywhere near, you should be either somebody lathering, covering your whole body with magnesium, or throwing you into a bath of magnesium and sodium bicarbonate. If anything natural is going to arrest the process or stabilize you, it's going to be something like that.
Heart attacks and strokes being two big examples of that, I think.
Yeah, the first thing is oxygen and magnesium. In the emergency room, they use magnesium injections. And when they do, they save people's life in a heartbeat.
Yes.
And if you inject it in the first 2 hours of a stroke, you avoid most of the damage of stroke. And they do that in the ambulances in Los Angeles. There's a test going on for years.
Yeah, they use magnesium sulfate, don't they, I think?
Yes, sulfate.
And magnesium sulfate has the wonderful pleasure that if you need to draw out a splinter, you can put on a paste of magnesium sulfate and draw splinters out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting application. So the whole approach is, I like to use military tactics in some of my writings. The one I just wrote last week is called Carpet Bombing Cancer with Oxygen. My original idea was to, like in the Second World War, when they would create traps for the enemy, you draw them in, and you would flank them on every side, and you hit them with a crossfire, and the idea was to annihilate everybody inside the line of fire. And even though it's aggressive imaging, it's what my protocol does. It hits let's call the situation of cancer, which is multi-level. It hits it from every side simultaneously, giving people the greatest shot at beating it naturally without using poison.
So most people who study chemotherapy and look at the actual survival rates have the unfortunate shock that it's sort of 3% or less generally. If you were to follow your protocols, on a pretty strict basis, and you were able to deal with the emotional traumas of the past and so on, and it's difficult to put a number on it, but how likely would you think it would be for somebody who puts their heart into trying and, taking action to get well, to recover from cancer? Could you give us an idea of what percentage of people it would work for?
If you haven't had chemo or radiation or surgery, historically, some of the, you were talking about great doctors in the beginning. Some of the great doctors claim about 90%. And then the wisdom comes in, if you've had chemo and radiation, that drops to about 50. I can't say what my protocol would do. Would I do better than 90%? It would be crazy to promise anything more than that. But my belief is, if you do everything right, and it's not your time, I mean, everybody has to leave this planet, but it's nice if we leave it in a nice way, like we're born in a nice way and leave it in a nice way. Dying of cancer is not a nice way to leave. But sometimes our time is up. But if our time is not up, I would say most people, if they do everything right and put their heart into it, they can beat their cancer. And they can prolong their life. And even if one's life has degenerated to the point where you're a basket case or you can't get out of bed and you're dying, you still can beat back the clock. It's more, for me, it's more about the quality of life. Like I have to be, to get into a hospital, you have to carry me in feet first. I mean, I avoid doctors like the plague. But when somebody like Dr. David Brownstein called me last night, I listened to what he had to say. And he recommended something that I normally would run away from, which is having somebody stick a tube down my throat with a camera and take a look at what's going on. Now, he made me feel very good, telling me that, of course, they're going to knock you out, like they did with my cataract, so I'm not going to really feel anything. But I just, I hate to do wrong things. And most of what doctors are doing is wrong. Oncology, chemotherapy, forget about surgery and the need for that. But radiation and chemo, I believe in both radiation and chemotherapy. But oncologists, they choose the wrong chemicals and the wrong radiation. They use dangerous radiation, the kind that kills people and creates more cancer. And they use chemotherapy, chemical agents, which kill people and cause more cancer. So if you want to believe in medicine and oncology, well, it's just a matter of doing things right, choosing the right radiation, which would be far infrared and near infrared. And I didn't even talk about it, that I'm getting into these bioresonance devices from Russia, like the Rife machines and these high-frequency machines. But choosing the right radiation for healing and using the right chemicals like oxygen, magnesium, carbon dioxide, selenium, medical marijuana. You just choose the right chemo agents, things that are known and scientifically proven to diminish your chance of dying from cancer. I have a chat, if you go to this drsircus.com site, on the bottom left is an essay called The Divine Cancer Mathematics. And I add up the math, like the selenium, say, giving you a 50% better chance of surviving cancer. Iodine, let's throw in 30% chance. Magnesium, 30%. Medical marijuana, another 50%. You can get yourself up to 200-300%. If you choose the right substances, of your chances of defeating cancer. So it really comes down to the wisdom to choose and who to trust. Do you trust a pharmaceutical company who's looking to make billions? Do you trust these people? I mean, who we trust is everything in life. And the biggest mistakes we make is mischoosing who we trust. And in medical level, trust is very important.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Free information, which you give in abundance. I mean, I get your newsletter several times a week, and it's fantastic. Wonderful information. I recommend everybody to get Mark's newsletter. Wonderful, wonderful information. And I thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really fascinating, and I know this is going to affect the lives of an awful lot of people. And so thank you again. And it's marksircus.com. Here in England, we have a website called ancientpurity.com, and many of the items that Mark has discussed, we have references to on the website, and I'd suggest you look at both sites. So thank you very much again, Mark, and I hope perhaps in the future we can speak to you again and learn your own health progress and what it takes to sort you out. And I'm sure it's as simple as that, really. It's just, sometimes with ourselves, it's right in front of our faces and we just haven't noticed. So hopefully David Brownstein's suggestion is going to be the one that leads to the solution. So good luck with that.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. All the best.
Good night.
Bye.